last part of this modularization technique is the function builder. Okay, this is very important actually. If you remember in the initial phase also, I told you some functions I have used it, right? Function modules. So there is something called as a function module, which is again a modularization technique, and it is also similar to an external subroutine only. Okay, but it has lot of parameters, like it is the last of the modularization unit, and it will be similar to external subroutine in what ways? Like both will exist with an external program. Okay, both will enable the parameters to be passed and returned, and the parameters can be passed by value or by reference. Okay, the major difference between this function module and the external subroutine, what are those? Like the function module have a special screen used for defining the parameters, right? So in the program itself, we were defining the parameters for the external subroutine. But in case of the function module, we have a separate screen for defining the parameters. Let me show you what is that screen. Okay. So let's go to the function. So what is the code for the function builder? This is SE37. Okay. So in this SE37, right? So in that case, like you will have this screen, and when you try to create any function module in here, so at that time, like the this function module gets created, and I will show you how the screen looks like. And for the function module, the parameters are not defined by via the ABAP 4 statements. Okay, and there are different syntax will be used to call a function module, but for subroutine the syntax will be different. Okay, and a function module name has practically the length of the 3 characters and a maximum length of 30 characters. So till maximum 30 characters we can give the name of the custom function module, and each function module will be assigned to a function group. Okay, whenever we try to create a function module, we have something called as function group. Okay, so let's go to the function. Before creating a function builder, we should actually create a function group. So this function group are the containers of the function modules. Okay, whenever you create a function module, you have to assign a function group. So this function group can access the global data of the group, right? And function groups cannot be executed. They cannot be executed. The name of the function group can be up to 26 characters long. And when you create a function group or function module, the main program and input programs are generated automatically. Let's see how we can create a function group and then a function module, right? So I have created a function group actually for you. And if you remember, we created one maintenance generator, right? At that time we had to give a function group. So this is another function group. So let's try to create a function group from SE80 itself. Okay, so we will try to create a function group here. Say ZFZ underscore our ABAP training, right? ABAP training function group. Okay, so we save it in our package. Let's refresh it. Okay, so our function group is created now. Now let's activate it. Okay. So we'll activate this function group. So if you see this is what it was. Like a function group will, by default, it will create some includes in this. So this is our function group, which we are going to use for our function module. So either what you can do is you can create a function module from here, or let's go to SE37 and we will create a function group there. We'll go to this SE37. So we will create a function module called as ZFM flight details, and our function group name was ZFZ underscore ABAP training, right? This is what we created, correct? And this function module for getting flight details. Now, which I was telling you that this is how we will be able to create our importing, exporting, changing or tables parameter. In our subroutines, what we were doing in that perform itself, we were passing that using and changing and table parameters, right? But in case of this function module, we have something called as import, export, changing table parameters. So now, if you go here, right? So like I have clearly mentioned what all are the functionality of this interface parameters, right? So for import parameters, it contains the list of the formal parameters that are used to pass the data to the function module. So importing means it will pass the value to the that function module. Export means it will retrieve the data, or it is used to receive the data from the function module, correct? And there is something called as changing parameters. This contains a list of the parameters that are used both to pass the data and receive the data from the function module. And there is something called as tables. Actually, these days tables are obsolete. Generally, we are using changing, but for tables, we have this specifies the tables that are passed to the function module. Table parameters are also passed by reference. Okay. And exceptions, what are the exceptions? When you want to try to create some exceptions in the like in your function module, like say for example this value is not there, then you raise an exception. So in that case you will use the exception, how the function module reacts to the exception. Okay. And when we try to add the function module to the program, we add it in our program, we have something called as pattern. In my earlier class also I've showed you how to call it in the pattern. Okay. So I'll show you now also. So you call the pattern. In this call function, you will have to give the function module name. Okay. So let's try to create simple function module right now, where I will be able to fetch the records from the S flag using the char ID and con ID. So as of now, let's try to write a small query here before going for that import parameter. So what we will do is we will use select, okay, star from, as of now I'm using select star, okay, just to for the demo purpose, okay, into corresponding fields of say the table. I'll use tspfli underscore data, where char id equals to the importing parameter value char id, and con id will be equals to again importing parameter con id. Okay. So now my importing parameter in here is just, yeah, importing parameter is char id. Okay. So here we will be giving the associated associated type of the char id is, let's see what is the associated type as flight. So what is it? S char id, right? Well, so similar to how we declare it in the program, right? Similarly, here we will also use the same thing. Okay, char id, press enter, and then there is another importing parameter which is con id, right? So type s underscore con id, correct? So, oh sorry, con id. Okay, so flight connection number. Now we have to receive some value, right? So in that case, we will be using an exporting parameter. So it will be like ex underscore. So I'm just giving the naming convention, importing im exporting ex, right? SPFLI underscore data. Inside this type, it will be of type structure, correct? And then we don't need, as of now, we don't need any changing parameters. Rather, what we will use is a table. Okay. So it is T underscore what we have used earlier, T underscore SPFLI underscore data. And here I will use SPFLI. Okay, so it will say that it is obsolete, but fine, that's fine. Okay, as of now, we'll use this as an optional parameters. Okay, and here also we will use it as an optional parameters. Okay, so now, and also we will create one exception here. Some issue is happening with the mouse. Invalid char ID. Okay, like that. If the char ID will be invalid, then we will raise this exception. That's fine. Now, source code. Okay. So if you see earlier, there was nothing in here. So once we declare the importing, exporting, and changing in table parameters, so by default, these things came into in here, right? So now what we will do is we will write our piece of code here, and we will call this function model in our program. So first case is if I used importing parameter, right? So if importing parameter char ID is not initial, first thing. Okay. So I will use what? I will raise an exception first. Correct. So select. I will use count star from SPFLI where char ID equals to importing parameter char ID. If the size subversy not equal to 0, that means if there is no count inside. So what does it mean? So I will select the count star from SPLFI, whatever I am passing the value. If there is zero count, that means size subversive becomes 0, not equal to 0. If there is something called as count is equal to 1 or 2, that means 2 records are present or 1 record is present, then we are good. If the subversive value is not equal to 0, then I will raise this in exception which I created. Correct? Invalid char ID. Okay. First part is gone. Then what we will do is, second part is, if my importing parameter is not initial and importing con ID is not initial, okay, then first statement what I will do is select. I will put one single record to the exporting parameter, correct? SPFLI into corresponding fields of exporting parameter is EX SPFLI underscore data, right? Our exporting parameter is this EX underscore SPFLI data, where my char ID will be equal importing char ID, and I will show you what it means. Okay, no need to worry. Con ID. Okay, so this is one condition. All right, but else what I will do is, if it is initial or whatever value it will be there, so it will directly take SPLFI and this thing corresponding fields of table. Okay, Okay, because this was my table, right? And so let's do a pretty printer. Formatting incorrect in the line. What happened? So first is this. We are okay. This pretty printer is done. Then if I am carried is not initial and this not initial, okay. This fine. So let's activate it. So our function module is created right now. Okay. So if you all right. So if you try to now execute it, okay, test this function module. So how we will do it? Let's find some value in the char ID and con ID, and let's one value. So AA0017. Okay. So we can see that there are a lot of records for AA0017. So let's test our function module here. We will execute the function model. We'll give something here. Okay, and we will see what is the value of that one. Okay. So A and the con ID is 0017. So it will fetch all the records into our. So as of now, what it does is, see, if you see the condition here, if it is not initial, okay. So if it is not initial, that means if we are giving some value, then it will fetch the record into our exporting parameter. If we are not giving any values, that will fetch the record to our internal table. Correct? So when we execute it, if we don't give any value, then in our SPFLI, it is not passing by, because our SPFLI, we should not give this condition actually for this one. So let's try. Let's see what happens. Because that condition will never work. Let's see. So if you see this you understood, right, Babu here? So what happened was I have given this piece of code, right? Like if the value of char ID and con ID is not initial, that means it is not empty, then it should select the query from SPFLI values, and it will pass to the exporting parameter. And if the char ID is initial, right, con ID is initial, if you give it in the where condition, it becomes a false statement, right, because it has 00. So in that case, it was not able to fetch the record. But now that I have removed this particular condition, then what happens? If I'm not giving any value, then it was giving the value in our tables. But say, for example, if I give some value in here, say I was giving AA and 0017, then it was fetching a single record into that exporting parameter. Correct? So this is how it was. So now let's try to call it a program. Okay. So let's do this. Let's call it from a program, and we will see how like earlier I have created one program, if you remember, where I was using that select query, right? Now
Correct.
instead of the select query, use the function module here, right, to fetch the same record. So what I will do is I will use parameters, okay, and I will use p underscore char id type s underscore char id and p underscore con id type s underscore con underscore id, right? This is what was the okay. So then we will declare an internal table lt underscore flight type table of s flight. Okay. So now in our start of selection, This is the event which we will be using. And now what we will do is we will call our function. So for calling our function, this is our pattern. Inside this pattern, you have everything here, right? So what we'll do is we will call our function. So what was our function name? ZFM underscore flight star. Let's put that. Flight details. Okay. So if you don't remember, just put the star and just do a search, then you will get it. So now if you see this, okay, first what we will do is we like if suppose I want the data for the exporting parameters, so let's do this type of thing. If p underscore same thing, okay, if p underscore char id is not initial and p underscore con id is not initial, then in this case what it will do is I don't need these tables in this case, rather I will use only this parameters, correct? And my exceptions will always be there, right? So in this case I will just pass my char id and I will pass my p underscore con id and I will give here a structure, right? So I will declare a structure again. So ls underscore flight type s flight, okay, and I will pass this ls underscore flight, okay, which is the work area, correct? So if that is the case, I will do this. Else, this is not, as of now it is fine. Else, okay, in my case what I will do is again I will call the function module this, and this time what I will do, I will use this, and here what I will do, if size sub t equal to 0, I will write ls underscore flight. I will use anything like char id ls underscore s flight con id ls underscore s flight. Let's put this much only, then that should be fine. Con id is not there. What else is there? Okay, so this is fine. Now if the else condition is there, then in that case I don't need this, so leave this part, rather I will only use this tables, correct? So I will use my what is that, lt flight, okay, lt flight. And if my size subversive value equal to 0, then what I will do, how will I read my internal table, Babu? How will I read my internal table? For structure it is fine. For internal table, how will I read? I'll use loop, right? Loop at lt flight into, I will clear the ls flight earlier which I used, right? And I will use the same ls flight here, and I will write the statement, right? ls underscore flight char id ls underscore flight con id and ls underscore flight flight. Okay, you understood this program? What happened here, Babu?
Yeah, yeah.
We declared in two variables. Sorry, this parameter, selection screen parameters. We have declared the internal table and the work area. Okay, first we are checking if the char id is not initial and pcon id is not initial. I am using the first parameters, right? Exporting and importing, how I showed it in the function module. But if, and then I am writing this thing. And if the other case, then I don't need the parameters, rather I will directly fetch this LT flight. Okay, I'll pass the LT flight, and whatever value I will get, I will just display it. Now let's activate it and see what are, okay, ls flight is unknown. ls flight ls flight is unknown. Okay. Oh, S flight it was. Okay, okay. Okay. So let's debug it and see how it works, right? So I will put my debugger here. I'll execute it. First time I will give the value AA and 0017, right? This was the value, correct? 0017. Okay. So let's execute it. You can change the name of that peak char ID and con ID, right? You know, right, how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the text elements, correct? So now my char ID is this, con ID is this, right? So it will first come to this function model, right? It will call the function model ZFM flight details. So we have given these parameters. So let's go there. Oops, what happened? Just because came across that unfortunately my function was called. Oh, okay. LS flight here is a different field type. Okay. Let's see what is the field mismatch happened here. SPFLI. Okay, okay. I have given here what? Okay. Okay, I understood what happened here. Yeah, these kind of issues also it might happen. So what you have to do is, so let's go there. Let's see what happened in our program. What was our program? Z modularization demo, right? Yes. Okay. Why we got the error? Can you tell me? So see, I have used the, let's go to the function module SC37. I'll just take 5-10 minutes more. Okay. So this was our function model which we used, correct? Now, can you tell me why the error became? Why it was an error? It was showing that the LS flight is of not, it is of like the type mismatch happened. Why? Because I have used this type S flight. S flight is a different table. SPFLI is a different table, right? So here my exporting parameter is of type SPFLI. However, I have used here as S flight. That's why that issue came. So type mismatch error, correct? So it came as a dump. So what you will do, you will have to always declare the variable which is of the same type of whatever function modules variables are, right? So now let's execute. Doesn't have a component. Yes, it's correct. It doesn't have a component. So ls flight. So let's take something called a city from, and here also something called as city from. You got this thing right, Babu? Why that error was coming? Because the table declaration was different. Okay. So now let's see what is the another error. The system is quite slow. A line of multiplied are not mutually converted, right? It's also same thing. This will be SPFLI. It's the error. All right. Now let's execute it. We'll give the same thing A0017. So first it came inside this. It called the function model. It came here, right? This one is all good. We don't need to raise the exception, correct? Then our char ID is con ID is this. It went inside this. It will fetch the data SPFLI data, correct? If you see the value, this is the value, and it passes it to that structure. So we got this value, right? And if, say for example, if I don't give the value here, okay, and if I directly execute it, then it will give me that internal table, correct? So it goes in to the else condition. It fetches the data, comes here, fetches the data to TSPFLI data. Now we have 26 entries. It comes out of this function module. If size subversive value becomes 0, then it clears the ls flight and it loops inside this ls flight and it will write the statement. So when we executed, we saw the 26 entries, right? So this is the function module and the function group. So this is all about our modularization. So this unit is finished today. Okay.